Thank you. Can you tell us, before we jump into that, can you tell us a little bit about EST Associates?
Sure. EST Associates is a small environmental sampling services company. We have offices located in Needham, Massachusetts, right outside of the Boston area, in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. We assist clients to meet their regulatory requirement needs. The majority of our clients consist of the municipalities, universities, hospitals, as well as some privately held companies. And we are a subcontractor on a lot of large contracts as well.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about your role.
I am the controller here at EST Associates. We have a total employee of about full-time employees and full-time equivalents of about 40 between our two offices. And the accounting finance department has 2 full-time employees, myself and a bookkeeper, as well as we have a shared resource that actually helps us also with the billing process. So it's a busy time in a small company, it's customary to wear a lot of hats. So, we're involved in almost all aspects of the business.
And when we were chatting earlier, you had mentioned that, AR automation was just a part of your digital transformation journey. Maybe you could touch on that a little bit about sort of the background before we go into the details of your AR automation.
Sure, absolutely, I'd be happy to. So we've been in business since about 1989, and typical of a lot of businesses, we are continuing to grow and expand our operations. However, our processes remained the same, and so while it was effective, it wasn't too efficient. So as I started to think about it, I'm like, well, we really need to, start to explore automation, and that's kind of what started us on our digital transformation journey. We first started with with an ERM system, so we implemented a cloud-based ERM system with Intact, and then once we had that successfully implemented, then we started to kind of branch out to see what other aspects of the accounting function and the operations function that we could also automate.
Great. So let's jump into the AR automation side. What was your business driver for actually looking at AR automation and trying to implement a solution?
Sure. Well, I think, we obviously wanted to make sure we got our clients, our customers were getting their invoices timely and securely. So that was really our main driver. We, with our digital transformation, we had a large IT budget, so we also wanted to make sure we could satisfy that budget as we started to implement new automated tools. So we just really wanted to just make sure that our customers were getting their invoices timely and securely. And one of the things we really liked about Lockstep Collect was that the customers could get an email with a secure link to your site, and they could view all of the invoice information right there on the site using a secure link without having to log in with a user ID and password, because we didn't want to make, in this day and age, there's so many username and passwords we have to remember. We didn't want our customers to have to remember yet another password and make that process more difficult for them. So that was one of the great things that we found with the Lockstep Collect solution.
So is it fair to say, it sounds like you were trying to move everything to the cloud, using Intact and now, Lockstep Collect. What were you using to manage collections before that? How did you do that?
Well, it's pretty much a combination of Outlook and Excel spreadsheets, which, weren't very efficient and, not very timely. And it didn't really give us a lot of time to, to react if we, needed to get a customer, a new contact or a new project out to make sure that we, had everything in place.
Interesting. That leads us into a poll question that we wanted to put out to the group. We have both customers and prospects on this call. If you are a customer of Lockstep, if you could indicate what you were using maybe before Lockstep Collect, that would be great. Either way, so we've got the poll up and we'd love to hear from you. So far, the clear winner is Outlook or Gmail. And that's definitely a lot of what we've seen as we've gone through and work with customers like yourself, is that there's a lot of that. So thank you for the poll. We came in at 50-50, Lockstep, Collect, and Outlook. So if you're still on Outlook, you can switch over to Lockstep, or if that was a historical thing, we thank you for sharing that with us. Speaking of kind of spreadsheet-driven process, it would be interesting to know if you can kind of remember back. It might have dropped off the queue, but what were some of the spreadsheets that you had? What would you manage inside those? And
well, it was all just a large, essentially Excel spreadsheet that continued to grow, and then we would just essentially have, aging categories and highlight different color highlights, and a comment section that essentially just referenced the collection attempts that we had with each customer. But it was a standalone process, and it didn't interact with any of our systems, so it really was not time friendly, because it didn't give us the ability to kind of react before, sending off new business or any of that, with the sales team and the accounting team. So it was, not an effective way to operate.
Interesting. And so as you moved off of spreadsheets and you started using Lockstep Collect, what was the feature that you think you appreciated the most as a result of the automation? What capability inside Lockstep Collect helped you the most?
One that I find the most useful is kind of the notes section, so that you can go in right into Lockstep and you can, send off an email, and then you can, record your responses, and the emails come directly into Lockstep so that you have a record of it. And it also gave, other departments that our client services team the ability to go in before they sent out new business or scheduled new business to see if there were any, old invoices, outstanding invoices that needed to get paid before we then yet incurred more debt for that particular customer. We kind of just created a good collection audit trail for customers.
That's great. And with the implementation sort of in hand, how were you measuring success? When we had talked, you had talked about a percentage of automation as being important to you. Maybe you could touch on that.
Yes, I think that we were trying to get, fully digitally transformed into like a fully automated operation. So we were able to essentially achieve that goal by having all of our accounting functions connected with each other and talking to each other. And that was really what our main goal was to reduce manual processes and create a more efficient and effective operation. I think when you're dealing with a legacy system, and you're dealing with inherent risk, and so you really want to eliminate that risk and make sure that your data is getting delivered securely. And
I think you had mentioned a metric to me that, if I recall this incorrectly, let me know, but that prior to the AR automation, about 27% of your invoices were being sent digitally, and that the majority were being sent in paper. Did that change, or do I recall that correctly?
Yes, you did. Yes, we were operating, pretty much the same as we had, since it was very little digital transformation. So a lot of our processes were manual, and our invoices were paper, delivered through the mail, statements delivered through the mail, and we just didn't have a lot of electronic emails to capture that data, because we didn't have anywhere to capture it. So everything continued to process as status quo. So when we looked into start the digital transformation, one of the big main drivers was to get everybody an automated system, because if you're operating off an automated system, it relies on electronic submission. So to implement an automated AR system and still send out paper invoices is inefficient, and you're not going to realize your goals as quickly as you could if you're doing it electronically. So that was our big driver, was to essentially get everybody, as much as possible, to get people getting their invoices electronically and not through the mail and paper statements.
Interesting. We wanted to run another poll, just again with the group here, just in terms of how much paper is in your current process, or how much paper you had prior to implementing Lockstep Collect. So Whitney, I don't know if we can launch that second poll. We've got some responses coming in. This is a great group. Less than, 0 to 10% is the majority of the group. It's awesome to see. And then there are a few people that are, above 20% and one above 40%. So great. Thank you for sharing that. And what's interesting, we've talked with a number of different companies, and they talk about that whole switch from paper to digital, trying to basically digital being able to send a PDF out. Did you get, one of the questions of why people don't necessarily make that leap is they think customers will push back on that. How did your customers react when you wanted to say, we're going to move to digital?
For the most part, they were receptive to it. I think email and Outlook has been pretty common in doing business, and especially now, given the way that the world is and the pandemic, when it hit, we were in good position to continue business as usual. We were deemed an essential business, so we continued to operate, and we also were, there was no really business interruption as a result of the shutdown. Our customers were still getting their invoices. They were still able to pay. So, in terms of that, we really noticed no interruption. So there were a few, I guess it comes down to know your customer. There were a few customers who, didn't necessarily enjoy getting, the reminders or the statements, and they said, well, we'll pay you when it's due. We also have some customers, since we are a subcontractor, we don't get paid until our customers, our prime contractors are paid. So we understand the terms of those conditions, and we have to kind of accommodate that. So there were some customers that, we didn't want to upset them, so we did take them off the automation and put them on white glove, and then just kind of handle them personally. But that's probably represented less than 5% of our customers. For the most part, everyone was receptive to it, and a lot of them actually enjoyed it, liked that, having that ability to pay. One of the good things as well is using this Lockstep Collect, was that that if there were any disputes when an invoice went out, we knew right away. So, there wasn't that, we had to wait till the due date in order to hear that there was a reason they're not paying us, and we knew right off the bat, and we could address it with the project managers and, satisfy the customer.
That's great. So they would actually log the disputes online or reply in email.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Now, when we had talked, you had said, one of the questions I'd asked was, what advice would you give someone who was considering AR automation? And you reflected a little bit on kind of data quality. I don't know if you could kind of share some of your experience of what happened with data, especially as it pertained to contact data.
Sure. I mean, one of my recommendations that we didn't do at the time is kind of scrub your data to, look at your customer base, to look at your agings, to make sure your contacts are up to date. And if you haven't done business with a client or customer in, 4 or 5 years, or even a year, depending on how your business goes, you may not want to, upload that information and just keep your customer base current. And it's easier to manage your contract lists when there's less volume. It's the most efficient way to operate.
So it sounds like, and then using something like Reengagement as a time to refresh data versus doing it all up front.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a great opportunity. I know it's sometimes tough because you're trying to implement and you're already busy, but it really will save you a lot of time down the line and a lot of aggravation and frustration, especially when you're looking at percentages and how many of my customers are automated versus not. And you have some old customers, so the data is not reliable. But it's not really relevant. So just making sure you get relevant, reliable data in your system, I think, is one of the most important things to consider when you're doing any implementation.
And so, when you had this data in there and some of it questioning reliability, were there certain tactics or techniques that you took to capture new data?
One of the things I started in the department was before a sales quote or referral went out, accounting would review it and sign the quote number into our Intact system, so that we had record in our accounting system. So then before that even went out, I made sure that we had a reliable email source, even if it was just the project manager or the salesperson in the account, but at least we had somebody that we knew would get an electronic notification. And we found that, if you have the salesperson on it and they're not the person responsible for paying, and they get a couple of emails, they're going to let you know, because they want to make sure that the invoice gets paid, because they're maybe tied to their commission or good customer service. So this is one of the things that we started inserting ourselves in the very beginning of the process, to try to eliminate chasing a client or a customer right after after the work was already done. Defeat that.
And one of the things that a previous guest had talked to us about in this podcast series was the fact that they had a lot of turnover of employees because the job wasn't, had a lot of menial tasks, wasn't really engaging. And they said the implementation of AR automation led to, quote unquote, 3 happy employees. Did you see that AR automation improved job satisfaction? I'd be curious to get your perspective on that.
Yes, I mean, I think it was certainly a less manual process, and it was, a lot less overwhelming when you don't keep on top of it, and it kind of gets away from you. It's much harder to kind of wind it back in, and your volume is much higher. So now I think we have our greater than 90 days and greater than 60 days at about 3% of our total AR. So it's a very manageable percentage that you can continue to keep in touch with those customers that are past due to see what the reason is behind it. And, it's not so overwhelming, and you're able to do it efficiently once a week, as opposed to it being this huge task that, I kind of hanging over your head. So it also involved more people as well, because, we reach out to other areas of the department and say, look, we're having a hard time collecting from this customer. Can you reach out to your contacts? And, a lot of times having someone else just touch base helped us improve our collections as well. So that was another thing that was definitely worthwhile.
And any thoughts on how this helped you during the pandemic in the last 12 months? And we'll open it up to Q&A of other people.
Oh, sure. Having an automated system, during when people couldn't go into the office, I don't know how, it really we would have been able to really continue on status quo without that, because people just weren't going into the office to, get their mail or going in once a week. So if you're only collecting your invoices once a week, then you're already behind. So, I think having, the ability to essentially operate from anywhere in the world with not having to go into the office certainly aids in your business, and you can't do that if you're not automated, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, and
Sure.
for sharing your story on the transformation. At this time, we will certainly open it up for any questions from any of the participants in the webinar.
So it looks like we did get one come in. Do you have customers who are reluctant to receive invoices via email? And if you had to estimate how many or what percentage were reluctant?
I would probably say, some of our clients are, municipalities, and they're used to doing, things by paper. So I'd probably say maybe less than 10%. We're reluctant to, so we probably still mail out about 10% of our 10 to 20% of our invoices, but some of our customers also want backup associated with it, so we mail that. But we try to also continue to have an automated electronic submission as well, so we're doing both. So there's just to kind of a double catch to make sure that it's getting delivered.
Yeah, there's actually another question here as well. There's a question of what one question would you have asked during the evaluation of vendors that you wish you had asked that you didn't ask?
You know, I have been very happy with Lockstep Collect, so I haven't really thought of anything that we didn't, you know, we didn't issue. I guess maybe I wish there was more maybe of, I would say maybe kind of a step-by-step process to, you know, so kind of alert what we should do before we actually start the process, you know, kind of scrub your old data, you know, make sure your customers are valid. But, you know, I'd have to say that the implementation team at Lockstep Collect was one of the, you know, the best implementations that we have experienced. They made sure that, you know, they satisfied the needs of our customers and our customer bases, and they were always available for answering questions, and they're still always available for anything that comes up. So we're highly satisfied.
Boy, there's more questions coming in.
Great.
So approximately how many invoices do you process monthly?
We have about 300 invoices per month.
Okay. And so as you were saying, close, you know, I think you said 5% of those are going to white glove, and you're really kind of doing that, and then the remainder are in the automated process.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah. I mean, we try to. We try not to break the automation as much as possible. But you know, again, you know, we want to keep our customers happy and know our customers. So it's a nice option to have that if you know if it's decided amongst you know the accounting team and the sales team and the management team that's the best course of action for that particular client. But it's something that we evaluate before we make that decision.
Right, and that's the you know, in just for reference, in Lockstep Collect, there's the ability to segment customers into different automation sequences. So that's how that's accomplished. There's another question. What KPIs can you track in Lockstep? And does Lockstep integrate into your current ERP system? I certainly EST Associates uses Intact, and we do integrate directly with Intact. We also integrate with a number of other systems. Those are available on our website. And then Kathy, I'll let you talk to any of the KPIs that you're using.
Sure. We look at DSO. Our DSO number might be a little bit higher than the average in totality, but we do have a lot of customers, part of our customer base, which we are a subcontractor, and we're waiting for the prime to get paid. So if we discount that out, it's probably closer to around 30 or 40%. So we do look at that DSO number, but we're not, you know, wed to it, because we do understand that there are other circumstances involved. We also look at, you know, what our average collection time is when we're making, you know, bids out to customers. Something we might want to consider if they're slow to pay, that we require a deposit before we'll, you know, we'll continue to do business with them. We'll, you know, we'll certainly require anything past 60 days past due before we'll, you know, send a technician out to service them. So that's another thing we look at, and we just kind of, you know, obviously we look at, you know, our AR collection rate in terms of total collectability and our, you know, audit trail in that regard in our current ratio.
Great, thank you.